Sideline with Rob Browne, breaking it all down. Yeah. SEC, Sideline Sports on my mind. Rob Browne calling game time, highlight shine, executive mind. Brendan Martin keeping Rob in line. Like, subscribe, share it, tell everyone. Sideline Sports, y'all come back real soon. Same place, same time, same tune. From the booth to the field, every Saturday feeling you home. We ride that rivalry, make that living room sound like the zone. From Tiger Grouse to Rebel Crowds, every hometown heartbeat loud. Rob and Brand turning up that talk like you right there inside the crowd. SEC, Sideline Sports on my mind. Rob Browne calling game time, highlight shine, executive mind. Brandon Martin keeping Rob in line. Like, subscribe, share it, tell everyone. Sideline Sports, y'all come back real soon. Same place, same time, same tune. Hey!
Brendan, you were in a band. You just haven't ever told us. You are super talented. All right, Rob Browne here with you on this Thursday morning, April 2nd. What a day we got. Great one today. Brendan Martin.
I was in a band, by the way.
Well, look, you are very talented, and you find that the producers and the people that make the stuff happen are like engineers. Yan Calvert, one of our guests this morning, love him. He's an architect. Dad was an architect. You can design it. Engineers make it work. Together, anything is possible. So look, we got Coach Matt Dean over in Memphis at Rhodes College with us. John Hartwell, AD extraordinaire, and now with I'm going to tell you what, GMC Architecture out of Birmingham, and Yan Cowart, GMC Architecture as well. They're up in Indianapolis. Second half hour, we'll have Gary Harris join us from Tuscaloosa. Lot to cover today, again, on this Thursday, April 2nd. Stuff, it's everywhere. Brendan, I love these reels that are going out. And follow us, like us, share it, subscribe. Streaming live right now, Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, all social media platforms. It's simple.
Yeah, if you like YouTube, man, we're like, I don't know, 400,000 or 500,000 views on our channel and about 4,500 subscribers. Come on over there. It's same, and you get all the reels and stuff too. So
yeah, and
whatever your jam.
Well, Brendan, I love to study, like you said, study this stuff. Reels are what gets it out there. And, you know, we've been saying this, that guys are going to stay in college a lot longer. Let's bring in our esteemed panel, some of the smartest people around right now. And you think about what is going on. We talk so much about NIL. Yan Cowart, living proof of it. So is John. So is Matt. What you did, the relationships that you have, you got instant credibility. Looking in Yan's house down in Fairhope a few weeks ago, there's a picture. You can't get in a picture like that, Yan, with Bo Bikes Bama, with people like Ken Griffey Jr., Bo Jackson, Lance Armstrong, who, you know, in spite of all that stuff, he's still a badass. I will never forget in the Tour de France when he's going up that hill in the French Alps and he looks back at that rival of his and gives him that look, you know, kind of like when you're offensive line coach or the kindly Wayne Hall might get flustered with a player and nearly come to fisticuffs. You knew you better get your act together. Guys, y'all are in Indianapolis, Hinkle Fieldhouse. Someone put it out last night. It was on an Auburn site, and it said, I've just checked the dimensions of this court. It's the same length and the same width of our gym back in Chittville, Indiana. That is a great line. You're there. Matt Dean was born on a basketball court, but you're up there for the Final Four. Auburn's in the Final Four for the NIT. You're going to be talking to a lot of athletic directors, coaches, people from all over the country. What would you like to be hearing from them besides a consensus, we're going to fix this mess? Is that possible? Start with you, John, and you know, get Yan and everybody involved.
Yeah, we've talked about this. Gosh, I guess the 3 years I've been on the show, almost 3.5. It's just like sports is a microcosm of society. There are challenges and things that we have to fix in sports, but I would argue sports, and even more defined collegiate sports, may be one of the most powerful tools in terms of uniting people, having people come together, uh, promoting school spirit, all giving the underdog an opportunity, first gen education, all those things gets drowned out by the numbers and NIL. And, we talked a little bit yesterday, I had a couple of conversations. Hey, belief is that for the upcoming college football season, the payroll for the top level schools is going to be $40 to $45 million in rev share. Yeah, and that's something totally new. But the basics and the core of college athletics remain so solid. And I would argue, I think Matt Dean, greatest single event in all of athletics. And yes, I know the CFP is great, but it's fairly new, is March Madness culminating in the Final Four. And hats off to the NCAA, to everybody involved in saying, hey, instead of having the NIT in Madison Square Gardens, let's have it, in the same city as the men's Final Four, and have the Division II championships, all of those things. I think it's going to take a great atmosphere and elevate it to something we haven't seen before in terms of a positive weekend for college athletics, in particular men's basketball, and for the city of
and
Indianapolis.
I will say this too. I read a lot when I'm running, biking, driving. I like what Gandhi said. I will not allow other people to walk through my mind with their dirty feet. And one of my favorite quotes of all time was from Pat Dye, who said, I don't allow my quarterbacks to have negative thought into their mind. Matt, once you start thinking negative, that toxicity metastasizes in your brain, and then it just overcomes everything that you do, and it becomes your narrative. You can't allow it. Matt Dean jumping here from the most beautiful inner city college architecturally in America. Yeah, and they have their own rock quarry in Arkansas.
Oh, perfect.
We used to own that. That's I think we sold it. But guys, good to be on. And John and Yan, hopefully we can connect tomorrow night downtown Indianapolis. Figure out a watering hole, so to speak. But going back to your first question, Rob, I think what's interesting about where we are right now is I agree it's a mess, but it's almost a perfect mess. And let me define that. Where else did we think in 2026 that Indiana University could win a football national championship, not a basketball? Yeah. So there are people out there that have figured this out. The quote I hear a lot of times by colleagues is, well, NIL's always existed. It's finally now existed for all of us. Okay. Yeah. And the reality is, you tell me what, the Blue Bloods were always paying players, but now everyone's got a little bit of a budget. Yeah. Now that $40 million number, John, I think that if that's accurate, what we're going to spend next year, boy, that just drives a further gap from the have and have nots, because you still got to have the ability from a revenue share standpoint and also from a fundraising collective standpoint to raise that money. And I know I live in the city. University of Memphis has a proud basketball tradition. I heard yesterday that our budget, the University of Memphis men's basketball budget next year will be between $4.5 and $5 million. Well, I don't care who's your coach. At $4.5, $5 million, you're not competing for the best players in the country because they're getting paid significantly more. I'll also tell you this much. The eligibility side is just crazy to me, John, because I guess now Trinidad Chambliss is eligible because it just depends what circuit judge, makes a decision on eligibility. Where does the NCAA even stand in this mess anymore, John? They are just powerless to a degree, aren't they?
Yeah, they really are. And that's why there are components of it I disagree with, but I do think I firmly adhere to the keep it simple, stupid theory. Yeah. I think the 5 years, you have a 5-year window from the time you start. If you stay healthy, and here's great. If you can only play 3, so be it. but just to simplify it because there are too many one-offs right now.
Yeah, and you know what, Yan, I'm going to ask you this. If you go back 20 years ago, the athletic budget at Ole Miss or Mississippi State may have been $50 million. You completed a project, the Auburn football complex, Starship Galaxy. It's beautiful. It's so functional. Less is more. You don't have to have everything to be functional, but it came in, the numbers, but wow, it's a massive project. People say, well, the day and age of brick and mortar construction is beyond us. Nothing could be further from the truth. If you don't have the facilities, you won't even get them there to begin with. What's going on nationally? Give a plug, man. GMC Architecture. No shameless plug, as David Brenner used to always say on The Tonight Show. I will be playing at the Sands Hotel Thursday through Sunday, and Johnny Carson would be like, wake up, man. But this is a big deal because if you build the facilities, man, they attract people like flypaper. Recruits, everybody wants to see them.
Yeah, Rob, I tell you what, I read something yesterday on an article, I can't remember, on LinkedIn or somewhere, and it's really beginning to turn towards, they're not building these facilities like they used to as far as a recruiting tool for the player. They're building them as a recruiting tool for the alumni and the fan, right? All the fan experience, every aspect of the design goes through a certain screening to see, does it have an ROI potential? What can we do naming rights on it? Can we get sponsorship on it? Because that's the way that they're funding, they're trying to fund these NILs. We're seeing projects where they're doing ground leases and condominiums to sell, and every time that condo sells, a piece that goes to their hotels that are involved with it, and it's a bed tax that goes not to the city but to the NIL fund. So it's changing from a perspective, but it is not slowing down, and it can't, because if you do slow down, you're going to get dropped as quick as anybody, even without the budget to pay the players.
All right, one more quick question before we get into the basketball. Yan, architecturally, Dad used to say, once you get past the original bowl, 50, 60,000, like Autzen Stadium, like that Gothic stadium they have up in Manhattan, Kansas. Dad said he went up there in the 70s, and he said, everybody, you go to a McDonald's, you go anywhere, they were wearing purple. It was purple pride, purple power. But that Gothic style of a stadium, like the Roman Coliseum, which I've been to, needs a little bit of repair. The rebar is beginning to show, but that's another story. But I think about Florida and the Swamp. We got a lot of Gators that watch this show. We're SEC. Well, we don't live in an echo chamber. We got people all over the country. The Swamp, when you go there, you go down 10 or 12. It's different. What are they doing down there architecturally? They're talking about spending $400 to $600 million. Kind of make sense out of that for us.
Well, again, it's not about the common fan anymore. It's a premium level experience. The common fan can take part, and they're trying to engage them. But it used to be that you had to pay $7, $8 for a hot dog. Well, they're trying to get that money into a different pot. They're trying to entice you to take part in a club space or a club room or for everybody, but it's comfort, it's fan experience, it's how can we get you to pull your wallet out and write us a check, not just come to the game.
Yeah. So bigger is not necessarily better. It's
it's absolutely not better.
Yeah. All right, Matt Dean, let's get started on this basketball right now. Final Four: Illinois, Michigan, Big Ten, Arizona. It's hard to say without saying Pac, Big 12, and, of course, UConn, the Fighting Hurleys. I love that guy as a coach. Call him whatever you want, but you get him in the Sweet 16, 2011, 2014, 2023, 2024. This is their third Final Four in the last 4 years. That doesn't happen by accident. Hurley is not trying to be your friend. He's trying to get you prepared for life, and it shows up on the court. Can UConn take this whole thing, in your opinion?
I think, how do I say this? UConn's very fortunate to be in this game. Duke had one of the all-time great blunders, in my opinion, in tournament play
Just
history.
hold the ball.
Yes. And I will tell you, a lot of us coaches, we find learning moments in great failures. And I will tell you, I would bet you this, John, completely. He wishes he would have used his last timeout prior to inbounding that basketball just to settle everybody down. He had 2 or 3 first-year players on the floor, right? I just think there was only 10 seconds left. You didn't have to throw the ball, advance it to the front court. And I think that's what's kind of lost here is, yes, it was a great play by UConn. Yes, it was a shot that may rank as the greatest shot up there to finish a game in NCAA history. But it also was one of the greatest blunders, in my opinion, as well. That being said, I think this is going to be a coming out party for Brad Underwood as a coach on Saturday. I think Illinois beats UConn. I think Brad Underwood can coach with anyone in the country. He's got a unique roster. They have a lot of European flavor. He's got perhaps the best freshman that no one knows about in Wagler. That is just really getting better. He's so much better now than he was in the first part of the season. I'm going with John Hartwell, though. A few weeks ago, John, you were on the Arizona train. Whatever happens in the left side of the bracket, I believe Arizona is going to beat Michigan, and I believe Arizona cuts down the Nets Monday night. I got an Arizona-Illinois final, and I'd take the over.
Yeah, Arizona, I think their 9th Final Four that they've been to. They got the one national championship, 1997, with Lute Olson. Tommy Lloyd, longtime assistant at Gonzaga. John, have you been to Spokane? Have you been to Spokane, Washington? Okay, you're muted. I can't hear you.
Was that to me?
Yeah, John. Sorry. Yeah, have you been to Spokane?
Yep. I've been to John Stockton's dad's bar. I've been to checked it all off.
Oh, so here it is. 26 years in a row they've been to the tournament, and you think about that. That's one of the great stories in basketball. Can UConn, in your opinion, do it? You've got Arizona still. Why would you change after they only shoot 8 3-pointers against Arkansas, hit 5 of them, still put up 109 points on a pretty damn good Razorback team?
Yeah, here's what I would do. Back to your original question to Matt, I would defer to Vegas. If you look at the line in both of these games, it's 1.5 point. I think Saturday's games are both going to be tremendous games, contrasting styles, but I agree with Matt. I think Illinois emerges from that game. While all 4 teams will be strongly represented, I think half the state of Illinois is going to go next door to Indiana and show up for that game. So I think if anybody has a home court advantage, probably the Fighting Illini. But I think they will play Arizona and will ultimately fall to Arizona for the national championship Monday night.
All right. Yan, you got a Final Four picks. I know you're going to watch Auburn play Illinois State. I love when people pronounce it with the S. It's a silent S, like the E on the end of Brown. It's not Mr. Brownie, it's Mr. Brown. But, that's another story. I've gotten off of 2 speeding tickets in my life because we don't have a Mr. Brownie in the records. I go, for the record, ma'am, on a taped line, I tried. But, Yan, give us your pick on who you think can win this whole thing. Then I got a basketball arena question for you after that.
Okay. I've watched Arizona in this tournament, and they are the most fast, big team out there. They're going to have to dribble it off their heel somewhere down the line not to win these games. I think athletically, I think they're all good. They wouldn't be here if they weren't good. But I just think they've got just a hedge above everybody else, and it's just a mental game now for them. The talent and the abilities there. Yeah,
I got a question from Otis Campbell in Definiak Springs, Florida. Florida's basketball arena, the O-Dome, it's old. It's like the bubble at the Y they put on during the winter. You can just count the mold spots when you're doing backstroke. I got to ask you, will they build a new arena in this day and age that we're in? And what would be the cost of building one. You wouldn't build the 20, 25,000 ego trip like Tennessee did with Thompson Bowling Arena to say they were bigger than Kentucky. But what's the size if Florida were to make a move? Because they've certainly got the credibility in college basketball. In the last 30 years, they've been the winningest in terms of national championships basketball program in the SEC. Joe Dean would say, little string music in downtown Gainesville, Florida. Whoa, showtime.
Yeah, so they will build a new arena. Yeah, it's time. The old dome's 30 years old now. It's showing its age, and again, back to that point, it'll be basketball primarily, but it's going to have multifunction to it. It'll be set up to where they can do concerts in it, and they can do other types of revenue generating events that it's really the O-Dome's not set up for acoustically or anything else. So it's coming, and right now we're doing a new arena in Mobile down there for them, and it's basically a $300 million project for 10,000 seats. Now that the one in Florida will be bigger than that, but so you're looking at $400 million probably at a minimum if they started tomorrow.
You finance it, public financing. You do bonds for that thing, sell tax-free bonds. Hey, how about a block of $1 million University of Florida basketball arena revenue bonds, because they're going to be supported by the revenue. I tell you, the smart thing, John, from an accounting standpoint, and Matt, you know this is on the business side, you don't want to have NRAs on your campus, non-revenue producing assets. So, John, you think about building these new arenas, multi-purpose. I mean, the football stadium can't just be used 7 or 8 times a year in a few scrimmages. You got to have the ability to have concerts. Look at Atlanta, the World Congress Center and stuff like that. Every building in Atlanta is used almost year-round, I would say. And that's go to downtown Atlanta by Mercedes-Benz Stadium. They can't build enough hotels either. I don't think the building will ever stop, will it?
No, and you look around, Yan and I spent some time yesterday in Huntsville talking to their sports folks from the CVB, and the number of events they're churning through there. That's what everybody, two things drive the world, dollars and cents, and it's not SENSE either. So no different with college athletics. And you're right, traditionally a football stadium that was used for 7 or 8 home ring game now you have to have components of it that are 365 days a year or close to it, whether it's some type of restaurant, a club that you belong to, and you can have access to the restaurant that overlooks the stadium and it's open year round, or other events, whether it's concerts or even taking premium areas and having weddings and corporate meetings and things like that as a component of it, to pay for NIL and revenue bonds to pay for facilities and a whole plethora of other budget needs from an athletic department standpoint.
Well, it's fun to watch. And Yan, my favorite scalper of all time, always meets me in front of the Auburn basketball arena, Snake. My man Snake. And Snake will always get me tickets. He goes, man, I got you tickets in the scholarship section. All you can eat, all you can drink. And you get there, you're on the 50-yard line, row 21 behind the Auburn bench or whatever. And no free hot dogs, no free beer, but lots of sunburn. Matt Dean, you talk about the basketball Final Four in these arenas and all like that. You think about Hinkle Fieldhouse. You think about Lucas Oil Stadium, these big cavernous stadiums. I went to the Final Four one time in Minneapolis. There were 52,000 people there. And my friend that was with customer retention with Hampton Inns got me tickets. We were 12 rows off the court. I'll never forget that. Ray Charles and the Pepsi Girls were singing and dancing all around us. And Grant Hill's family was there. Calvin Hill, who played his football at Yale and then the Cowboys. What's the greatest basketball arena that you've ever been to, Matt Dean?
Well, that's a great question.
That's a lot of questions.
I mean, that's John, Rob's always going to have one there that you're going to wonder how the heck did that not see that coming. But Let's go back to like Hinkle and Lucas Oil. One of the things that people don't realize is you play all year in probably a 15 to 20,000 seat capacity arena, and you make the Final Four, and you're really essentially in a football space. So the backgrounds are really hard from a shooting perspective. And I don't have the data right now, but traditionally those games. So think about this, guys. The NCAA sends us brand new balls, and we're playing in an arena where it's just a huge cavern of space behind the goal. It's really hard to shoot. So getting back to, like, you look at this, Arizona only they're the team that relies on the 3-point shot the least amount. So that would tell you one thing: they don't have to shoot longer to win, distance wise. But like I will tell you, for me personally, back in the day when Michael Jordan was playing, the old Chicago Stadium was really it's really a dump. So when they tore that down, they built the United Center, and I had a chance to go to a Chicago Bulls game in United Center. And for me, part of the joy of being in one of those spaces is just how the crowd reacts. And I will tell you, my greatest sporting event was actually at the United Center watching a hockey game when the Blackhawks were making their run to 3 Stanley Cups in 6 years. Watching a hockey game in the United Center in Chicago, Illinois was one of my favorite venues. For basketball, to me, they're very, very comparable. I don't think there's one that stands out for me. From a Final Four perspective, though, when you go to New Orleans in the Superdome, that's a pretty cool venue with all the history. And you go back, and that's where Michael Jordan really started his career as a freshman. Yep. The game-winning shot to beat Georgetown in North Carolina. That was the early 80s. There's just been so many great venues out there for the Final Four. And I was blessed enough to go to about 12 or 13 straight when I was on the men's basketball side. So this is the first Final Four I will have attended in probably over a decade.
Well, it's an incredible event. John, you and Yan been all over the country as well to a lot of arenas. What's your best basketball arena? Best or most difficult to play as an opponent?
Well, I'll say from a personal experience to play in Lawrence, Kansas, Coalfield House.
Yeah.
I had the fortune to play there as a senior at the Citadel. Larry Browne was the coach. We actually lost that game 74-71 the entire year, maybe in my 4 years. Unbelievable game. And that was Danny Manning and Mark Randall, all those guys. I'll never forget, and a lot of people have things to say, some positive, some negative about Larry Browne. I'll never forget. He comes in our locker room, and this was in January of 1987. 5 minutes after the game, comes in the locker room, and to a man goes to every one of our players and says, "You know what? If I could get my guys to play as hard as y'all play, we'd win the national championship." Sure enough, the next year they won the national championship. But to me, that's right up there. It would be hard to argue about Cameron Indoor Stadium too, the setting, the history in there. And, hats off to Duke. They have avoided the pressure of revenue generation by getting more than, there's hardly 8,000 seats in there. Now they've raised prices, and it costs you a buku of money to get a season ticket. Obviously, they've got a long waiting list, but to me, those two are the most iconic.
Yeah.
Who did you say really quick? What was this list of names you said at the beginning? Guys you were playing with?
Danny Manning, Mark Randall.
Mark Randall.
Yeah.
I have a set of his golf clubs in my house. He's yeah, Mark and I played. He came to Altitude Sports and Entertainment in Denver. And then when I was one of his his editor for highlights and all that stuff. So I know Mark really well.
So I will actually see the guy tonight, Ed Conroy, who's the head coach at the Citadel. He was a teammate of mine, the author of Pat Conroy's cousin.
Yeah.
His brother's the associate head coach at Tulsa, who's playing in the NIT tonight. The nastiest dunk I've ever seen in terms of being in the game with. Mark Randall scissored Ed Conroy. I would use another term, but this is a PG show. But he scissored him and went over the top of it.
Wow.
I've heard him tell that story on the golf course.
Something about drinking iced tea, but I'm not going to go there with the full term.
Oh my God.
Hey, John, trivia question. Where is Ed Conroy from?
Davenport, the Quad Cities, man.
Absolutely. Let's bring in Gary Harris, WVUA Sports Director, Channel 23 in Tuscaloosa. And Gary, having a great discussion with John Hartwell, Coach Matt Dean, Brendan EP, and then Jan Cowart from GMC Architecture in Birmingham, who walked on at Auburn, what I call a real example of NIL. And I got to ask you this question because I asked him, I know yesterday was April Fool's Day, but there was architectural renderings of a new basketball arena in Tuscaloosa. Your boots on the ground. You've forgotten more than I know. True Grit journalist Gary Harris. First off, thanks for sharing your time with us. Is there any truth to that? Because you've got a hell of a coach and a hell of a program with Nate Oates.
Well, they're building that incredible state-of-the-art practice facility.
Okay.
No, they're not building a new playing arena. That got shelved when NIL came into play, but they are building. I think this is going to cost them around $60 million. I mean, it's going to be incredible. It's going to be an addition to Coleman Coliseum because once NIL hit, Coach Oates said, "Listen, it's more important where they spend their time every day and than where we play. And we'll need that extra money to go in other areas, but they're building it'll have state-of-the-art practice facility. It'll have all the academic centers, all the dining, all the lounges with the video games and everything else. In other words, especially now that it seems like all these athletes take their classes online, I guess they'll go there and just spend the entire day in the facility. But as far as the playing arena, no, they're still going to play in Coleman Coliseum.
Gary, watching the game Friday night, Alabama up by a couple at halftime. Second half was different. You live and you die by the three. What is Nate Oates? What do you think is going on in his mind about, okay, I got to get over the hump? Alabama is almost a perennial Sweet 16 team with him there, and they've got NIL. They've got a lot going on, but at the end of the day, there's something or a couple of things missing. You know a lot about basketball. Give us your wish list.
I've said this before. I mean, he's gotten over the hump. He's been to a Final Four and an Elite Eight in separate seasons.
Yeah.
I mean, the Brandon Miller team, I thought was, number one overall seed. I thought that team was good enough to win the national championship.
Yeah.
I mean, some things happened. They got beat by San Diego State for one, a veteran team that I think averaged 24 years old per player. And, the stuff with Darius Miles, regardless of what people say, that impacts your team. I mean, that was a lot to go through, particularly Brandon Miller being in the middle of it. Then last year, an Elite Eight. And then this year, I said all along, Rob, on this show many times, I thought the Sweet 16 was the ceiling for this team. I said it, last week that I didn't think they would beat Michigan, but they did lead them 49-47 at the half. But the issue is, and he'll address it immediately. He said in the press conference following the game that, he knows they've got to get bigger inside. Some things happened. I mean, they signed Collins Angiaka, who is 6'11", about 260 pounds, and missed the entire season with some type of heart murmur or some type, they can't talk about these things, but he was out the entire year. And then Bristow, who they brought in from Tarleton State, who probably was the MVP in the Illinois game. They beat Illinois up in Chicago. And he played great. Then he was out half the season. Then they try to bring in Bediako based on, again, what Oates said was, Baylor got a player eligible. Some other schools got, some players eligible. And then he played 5 games and he was out. So it's not just about rim protection. I mean, that term gets used a lot because they shoot so many threes. But, against a team like Michigan or against a team like, Illinois, who they beat, or Arizona, who they lost to, they led them at the half. You just need some size. You just need some big bodies. And again, Rob, I think the live by the three, die by the three thing gets overplayed a little bit. The reason they scored 49 points in one half, and I think they scored 28 in the second half, was, they just couldn't get easier baskets. Michigan extended their defense, and because they don't really have an inside scoring presence. So I think he's going to, try to address that in the portal. I mean, they've signed a good signing class, but they're not, inside guys. So we'll see what he does. But I do know this about Nate Oates. We talked about this before. In terms of the modern game, I think he's really the perfect coach. He understands roster construction. He understands that you're going to have to roll over your roster. I mean, you could look at, and somebody sent me the list of guys that are playing right now this past year. that were at Alabama. I mean, the players that have come through here that didn't stay. I mean, one of them, Jaden Bradley is the starting point guard for Arizona. He was on that team with Brandon Miller and those guys. So he understands, what it takes. He wants to win a national championship. So this year, if your down year is a Sweet 16 and second place finish in the SEC, I think you got a pretty good program.
I agree. Matt Dean jumping here with Gary Harris. This is great discussion.
Good to see you, Gary. And you were right. I mean, we talked about this, Gary. You did specifically probably 6 weeks ago about the ceiling for Alabama, and they let him at the half. And I agree with Gary. Rim protection is great, but sometimes you just want guys that are longer to contest any shot. Doesn't matter if it's around the rim, anywhere. And really what happened in the second half, credit to Dusty May, they did a good job on the perimeter side defensively. And some of the shots that Alabama got in the first half, they didn't get in the second half.
Right.
I'll tell you, from a coaching standpoint, you don't see that style of play. I'm talking about Michigan that frequently. So you need 20 minutes to adjust to it and kind of make some decisions on how you're really going to guard it. And then sometimes when, you get to the point where a team like Alabama's making 15 to 17 threes, doesn't really matter what you do. You get that high volume of 3-point success, it's going to be hard to win the basketball game. But after watching the Alabama game against Michigan and watching what Michigan did to Tennessee, I mean, there's also an argument, and we've said this many times in the history of this event. I know John knows this, that, should you reseed when you get to the Final Four? Because clearly Arizona and Michigan are 1 and 2, whatever your preference is. I think Vegas has Michigan as a 1.5 point favorite. But I will also contend on the left side of the bracket, I think Illinois or UConn on the right night can beat Arizona or Michigan. I think Arizona's the favorite. I take them slightly over Michigan. It wouldn't shock me, though, if Michigan cut down the nets.
Yeah, I want to follow up on that too, and because there's been a lot of talk about that. I'm not for reseeding. I think you seed it the best you can, and I agree. I think the marquee matchup in the semifinal is Arizona versus Michigan. But I'm not, for me to say that Illinois or UConn can't win it all. I'm not going to say that. I think that's a ridiculous statement. I mean, I think when you look at what UConn has done under Danny Hurley, I mean, that team is tough as nails. I mean, to win against Duke the way that they did, and I know, Boozer panicked a little bit, obviously, but UConn pushed the issue, man. I mean, down the stretch, they just kept coming. And Illinois is experienced as they are with the number of foreign players they have. So I don't necessarily think that Arizona and Michigan's the pseudo national championship game. One more thing about what you were talking about Michigan and Alabama, and this is a couple things I kept hearing from Alabama fans. Well, if they did against Texas Tech, that they can beat Michigan. Well, they're not going to play like they did against Texas Tech because Michigan's better. And that's the thing is the deeper you get in the tournament, and the biggest thing Michigan had was just an incredible roster. And Lindenborg, I know Dusty May had experience there at Florida Atlantic, had played against him at UAB, and I know he cost them a lot of money. But there are a lot of teams around the country that are wishing they had gotten to that sweepstakes because he is one of those guys that without him, Michigan's a really good team. But if they don't have Yaxel Lindenborg, they're not in the Final Four. I mean, he is that good. He was the cherry on top of that roster. They got some good players. Don't get me wrong. They got some size. They got some shooting. They got the point guard from Godot from North Carolina. But Lindenborg is the difference there. He is just a phenomenal. And I want to, for Mr. Coward, I got an interesting story here. He might not remember this or not, but one of my best friends played at the old, what was that private school? It was either Bessemer Christian or something, but a guy named Lee Fisher, he played with you in the AISA All-Star game. Do you remember him? Yeah, he was a quarterback. I can't remember. Was it Minor Christian he played? It was one of those schools in the Birmingham area that
it was Bessemer Academy.
Yeah, it wasn't Bessemer Academy because he was in the Inslee School District and he had transferred over to they're not a school anymore, but it was like might have been Minor Christian, but anyway, he played with you in the All-Star game. I remember him telling me that. So
yeah,
interesting.
Yeah, how about that? That's been a minute now.
Yeah, it's been but he still lives in Birmingham and is in sales and has done really, really well. But he was I met him when we were both probably about 21 or 22. He's a good athlete. I remember, we played a lot of basketball together. So yeah. How about that?
I'm glad you brought that up. That made me go.
Yeah.
Well, back in the days,
forget. That's when AISA ball was. It's a lot different than it is now. There was some serious ball going on in the private school ranks back in the day.
Yeah, there was, and you played at Marengo Academy.
Marengo Academy.
Yeah,
Yep.
over there. Yeah, and the black belt. Yeah, yeah. And I had a pledge brother, Miguel De Lacer, from over there. John Hartwell, and you've been listening to this conversation about what's going on in the Final Four when you get there, and then you look at people are going and getting these kids out of Europe. And Gary and I brought this up when Charles Bediako, everybody was ripping into Alabama. And I'm going to be objective always on this show. I've got 16 children. It's called the SEC that we cover. I see where Auburn signed a guy from France, and Jason Caldwell, Auburn Undercover, yesterday said, I don't know if they're going to classify him as a freshman, sophomore, junior. We don't know if he's 20, 25, 30. We don't know. But, man, he looks good. Let's talk about, roster building in this day and age. And Nate Oates, if you've ever had a chance to meet him, I think he's a hell of a coach. And he's got a great selection of plaid blazers like Winifred E. Wimp Sanderson, one of my favorite coaches of all time. I love it.
Yeah, he does. And I agree with you. I think Nate Oates is a really, really good coach. Here's what I would say about the European players. And this has not been a secret, but as you talk about Mark Few and, some other coaches out west, Tommy Lloyd, obviously learning from Mark Few, the European kids, and me to say it as somebody who I wasn't jumping over the top of people. I was not, yes, I was blessed with height, but I wasn't the quickest, fastest, highest jumping player there was. But fundamentals and basketball IQ helped me have the success that I had. And I think the European players are far in advance of the U.S. kids, because a lot of the U.S. guys, and they go through the AAU system, they go through all of that, relying on their athleticism and really don't hone basketball skills, the ability to dribble in a crowd, the ability to pass the ball, to all of those little things that are fundamental to basketball that I think the Europeans have a significant advantage. And so if you can pick, but it's still about the ability of a coach and their staff plug those players in to play complementary basketball to the other guys you have. Again, we talked about this before. There's only one basketball out there. So there's only so many shots that are going to go up in a game. And you've got to have a complementary lineup on the court at all times, especially when you get to this level, semifinals and finals. You can't have a wasted 2, 3, 4 minute stretch where you lose it from being down 2 or 4 to down 14. It's hard to recover.
Yeah. Gary, who's going to cut down the nets Monday night? You've got a crystal ball. You gave me High Point. Thank you, by the way.
Listen, I picked Florida to win it all. So, so I've been done for a while as far as, having watched that Michigan-Alabama game and what Michigan was able to do in the second half. And, they have it all. I mean, they do have size. They have shooting. They have, I think, the best player in the country in Lindenborg. Is just picking one player. But, boy, I tell you, Arizona, I saw them against Alabama too, and they're so talented. And those young guys that, were young are now have played 35 games. So experience is not an issue for their younger guys. And then you got UConn, like I said, just tough as nails. And there's some things about Dan Hurley that, kind of don't care for a little bit. He's so over the top. But the toughness, and again, with Illinois, with as John was saying, with all those European players, they really know how to play the game. So I'm not, sold on the fact that the Michigan Arizona winner is going to win the national championship. Having said that, right now, I hadn't even really thought about it. I'd probably pick Arizona to win it all. I just think that even with Lindenborg at Michigan, I think Arizona, they can beat you different ways, and they're good defensively. They got a lot of different guys that can score, and I think Jaden Bradley, the experience that he has, the physicality that he has at the point guard is going to make a difference for that team. So I'll go with Arizona. How about that?
All right. Matt, Hurley's dad, longtime high school basketball coach at St. Anthony's, which is the Catholic patron saint. If you lose something, say St. Anthony, I've lost something, you can find it. I mean, watching his mom and dad's reaction in the crowd, That was cool stuff. I love coaches like Hurley. I don't know. I just like intense people who demand that you win in everything you do. That's all they ask for. I love people like that.
Well, I do too, Rob. But getting back to his son, I mean, I'm with Gary a little bit too. Sometimes it gets a little bit over the top for me. I mean, at the end of the day, it gets old sometimes. And I think that takes away a little bit of his brilliance from a certain sector of the population. I'm just being honest with you. I was a head coach for 16 years. I got 2 technical fouls. Now, I'm not in the same category of these guys in terms of record, championships, whatever, but I got to tell you, we're all human. When you're on the court and you're berating an official to the point that it's embarrassing, I just, and that's why even sometimes in the pressers, and I know Mick Cronin, I've worked camp with Mick Cronin. Mick just gets on these rants sometimes, and I'm like, these guys are your friends, Mick. I know there's going to be a random question, and I'm sure, Gary, you've been involved with thousands of press conferences in your career, but it's part of the job is taking some of these questions, and that's why I'm kind of pulling for Brad Underwood this weekend, guys, because he didn't get his first head Division I job till 49. I think he started at SFA, Stephen F. Austin. He's an old JUCO ball coach. He just knows how to coach. And I really think that matchup with UConn and Illinois, we're going to see some people that didn't know anything about Illinois. Okay, I'm going to say because I'm an Iowa and Illinois. But the worst part of my day Friday is going to be when I hit 70 and go east of that road to Indianapolis driving up there, and all those Illinois fans are coming over from the Champaign area. Yeah. And I'm going to be stuck in a mess tomorrow afternoon, getting there about 5 o'clock. That's going to be the worst part of my evening. I'm going to need a watering hole with Hartwell about 6 p.m. Eastern time.
Well, I will say what he should have done is follow the example of one of the best coaches I can remember in terms of being kind and getting along with the officials was Bobby Knight. But anyway, I digress.
I do like Bobby.
Real quick on Hurley there at the end of the game, because again, I know he knew the official and all, but there's a lot. I saw some people saying, that almost was a headbutt on that official at the end of the game, and that he was fortunate he didn't get a technical to losing the game. And anybody else kind of, they did kind of come over there and bump heads with each other. I wouldn't call it a technical. I think I've been an awful way to lose the game. But there's some people that were saying because of what Matt was saying, the way he berates officials and all, that when he came over there and kind of did that little headbutt on the official, he's lucky he didn't get a tee. How about that? You just get a shot from 40 feet to win the game, and then your coach loses it on a technical foul. That would have been an all-timer.
Funny little thing, the freshman for Duke that made the turnover, then, UConn, the shot was fired by a freshman as well, with some help. But that was an incredible ending. John and Yan, you think about if y'all had a coach like Dan Hurley, would you talk to him about it? Or would you say, look, man, I don't want to get in his way. He knows how to do it. But I'd say no headbutting, please. Nope. I think you're muted. There we go.
Go, John.
Everybody's got a style.
Yeah. Yeah. And you talk about having a style. John, come back in here with us. Breaker 19. How about you out there, Big John? Come on at you.
Yeah. Yan and I are probably the wrong people to ask because, it's been a minute or two since we played. And, you would get MF'd by a coach. And, I'll tell you this. I ran suicides with the cinder block over my head. So, there's some things that coaches could get away with 35, 40 years ago that they can't get away with today. But I do think he's a little over the top. I mean, to me, the most ironic thing of that whole deal was, and it's, if the sound would have been on during that whole fray, the camera pans to his mom, and his mom's throwing an F-bomb in there too. So the apple doesn't fall far from the tree.
Well, Yan, what's the toughest thing you ever experienced playing football for Coach Dye? Or, I think about Neil Callaway or James Daniel or Wayne Hall or Reggie Harry, any of those kind fellas.
Well, back to John's cinderblock story. I can remember one time missing a workout because I was actually studying. I had a class.
Imagine that.
Time out. Hold on.
That's a new concept for today's athlete.
And I had I had to go up the south end zone with 2 cinder blocks in each arm 10 times as a punishment for that. So, yeah, I don't think that they can get away with that anymore.
Well, I mean, yeah, I got in the bond business. I was doing push-ups on the trading floor. I mean, get up, Mr. Browne. No, sir. Why not? Because you'll never do more push-ups than me. But, you know, that's the way. But, Gary, I know you've got to go here.
Yeah, I got to go
In a minute. Tell us, what do you
But it's a different time. I want to follow up on the coaching thing, because even when I was in high school at Cleveland County High School in Heflin, you didn't question a coach. I mean, if they grabbed your face mask or slapped your ear hole, or even on the basketball court, told you to get out of the gym. I made a behind the back pass one time, and Robert Clements was the head coach, and he just threw me out of the gym. And but you didn't question it. I mean, you just went with it. But now it is a different time. Yeah, what Hurley's doing as a coach 30, 40 years ago, I mean, it was just kind of the norm. Like I said, Bob Knight. Can you imagine Bob Knight coaching today? Or on the football side, some of these guys, what they put players through, but players now grow up in an environment where they question. And the biggest thing, and I'll say this before I leave, is we talked about this before, the value system in college sports has been flipped. Players have the leverage now, and they know it. And the parents and the player and their handlers know it too. So coaches do have to walk on eggshells to some extent, because you say the wrong thing to the wrong person or do the wrong thing, and you can get, no matter how successful you are, you can get leveraged out of your job. And I think coaches are aware of that. Hey, thanks, guys.
Hey, Gary, thank you so much. Tide 100.9. Get the app on your phone and watch it. Appreciate it. Great stuff, and I think about this. We watch these games. You're right. Bob Knight throwing the chair. And by the way, there was an old thing on YouTube recently. It's Letterman talking to Bobby Knight, I think, about why he threw the chair. He said, actually, what I was trying to do, someone on the other side of the court, they were short a chair, and I was throwing them a chair so they could sit down and watch the game. I mean, you think that's true, Matt Dean?
Well, I've heard that Letterman segment. There's no doubt about it. But I will tell you this about Coach Knight. I had the pleasure of listening to him speak in the late 90s at a coaching clinic. He said one of the most ironic things I thought coming from him was really unique. He was talking to a bunch of coaches, and he said, we are killing ourselves. We are killing our athletes, and we have to stop. And he pointed out that back in the day, he would play a Tuesday game, let's say, against Wisconsin, and they'd lose. And then they'd go out the next day and they'd practice 3 hours, and they get their butt kicked the next day. And he said, when conditioning is no longer a factor, we do not go longer than 90 minutes. Now, it's an efficient 90 minutes, but when we do not need the conditioning part of the game, we are efficient. We're in and out in 90 minutes. And I think you could even see in the later stages of his career, when he took Texas Tech to a Sweet 16, he was starting to soften and acclimate a little bit. And I never was like some of the other coaches we've talked about, but you can't act. The part about today, and I experience it every year in my venue as a coach, you have to be to hold kids accountable these days. You have to be the most transparent you've ever been. And what I mean by that is, if you're going to change the lineup, you better call that player in. You better have A, B, and C as to why you're making this change. Otherwise, there's a good chance you're going to hear from a family member. And I'm just being totally honest. It's really difficult. Even when I got my first head job at Denison University in Granville, Ohio, and I coached John's nephew, Charlie DeLacy, who is to this day one of my favorite captains and players I've ever coached. I was a lot tougher then than I was 10 years later. I've softened a lot, because when I was a young coach, I was just an idiot. I really was.
Well, one thing for sure is when you get mad, the more you say, they lose you pretty quickly. That came from an RI at Fort Benning when I was doing a story, and he said, Rob, once you start yelling, they tune you out. After the first few words, you got to save it for those special occasions. And one of them was not filling your canteen with water when the water buffalo stopped. That 3 of those demerits, and you have to go. You could be in day 61 of 62 days of Ranger School. You're recycled. You're starting over, buddy. Good luck. No bending of the rules. All right, guys, y'all are in Indianapolis. Matt, you're going to meet up with John and Yan Cowart. This is a lot of fun, and I think too, what I'm seeing out there in the landscape, people want to hear the truth. we change, but the adults are in charge. And so the kids are going to do what they're allowed to get away with. And this stuff goes full cycle. And I think there's everything has a shelf life. Every superpower has a lifespan and everything. I think you're going to start seeing Yan. You look at it in the building, it's more premium seating, it's whatever. I'll tell you what's going to start happening. You're going to see, and I've been saying this for a while, the coaches are going to start being more available for interviews. They're going to be more accessible because not only do you have to re-recruit your team at the end of every season, you've got to re-recruit your fan bases, okay? I was at Auburn when Yan was there. We knew about Yan before he played because friends of mine in my fraternity that were in architecture said, oh, my God, he's walking on. And I mean, my dad said, he goes, I walked on for spring practice. And I said, I was good, but not that good. You're up at Dudley Hall till 3 a.m. and Shot Shin and Claude Saya and Coach Jordan beating on the door. Let's go, let's go, let's go. You can't go on 2 hours of sleep. I think this is great. It'll all work out. But I think the universities are starting to re-recruit their fan bases. Do y'all agree or disagree with that? They have to.
Absolutely, Rob. There's just no doubt about it. I mean, and it's, it's a totally different recruiting style now too, because you've got a complete social media, the whole myth.
Yeah.
The way we operate is completely different. So that's part of it.
Yeah, and I love what John Summerall, John, you know him. I love, man, he's just, I wanted him so bad, but I like Golish. I like Golish because I think he's all over this stuff. I think in Silverfield, these coaches that came from the American really seem to get it. Hey, we need to reconnect with our fan bases. We just got a couple of minutes, but absolutely awesome stuff today with y'all. Thank y'all so much for sharing your time with us. And I hope y'all all have fun together. The first round's on me up there when you get to CK's coffee shop.
We'll send you a
selfie. I'll send you an invoice, Rob.
Yeah, don't forget to send your credit card number for us, Rob.
All right, that's BR549. BR549. But John, I think we're reconnecting with the fans, and Matt, you think about that. They see you, and there's NIL in the far right. In the long sleeve polo, Yan Cowart, GMC Architecture, along with John Hartwell, GMC Architecture, Goodwin Mills and Kaywood out of Birmingham, Alabama, folks. If it can be built and be designed, they can do it and they will do it. So, guys, we'll see y'all again in a few days as we get ready for Monday night. We'll reconvene the panel for the national championship. So y'all are staying through Tuesday up in the big city, all of y'all. Yeah.
I'm leaving Sunday, Rob. I'm leaving Sunday.
Matt.
All right, you got to get back
Matt,
to school.
safe travels. We'll see you tomorrow evening.
All right.
Yeah, look forward to it, guys.
Thank y'all so much. Let me say real quick, get out Landers Ford, folks. Truck month ended March 31st, but there are always opportunities to save big at LandersFordMemphis.com. Poplar and Houston Levy, where Germantown and Collierville come together. Ask for Brad Bellamy, the general manager, okay? Great people to work with. They've got Explorers, Expeditions, and the Broncos. They got a lot of them. Ladies love Broncos, okay? Hey, My Town Roofing, Hewlett and Dunn, HempForPros.com. Check them all out. Sidelines.live. Most often, we see the face of Christ in the least among us. Find ways to go out and bless others and watch this channel. Thank y'all. Have a great day.